Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're cracking open your sources on a really compelling story. It's about resilience, but maybe not in the way you'd expect. We're talking about Meisho Doto, the Japanese racehorse, often called the gentle underdog who never gave up.
Yeah, and it's quite a narrative shift, isn't it? Because,
Yeah.
I mean, statistically, Doto was often defined by the horse he couldn't beat.
Right.
But somehow he became much more than just those stats. So our mission today really is to unpack why this perpetual runner-up, as people call him, became such a huge symbol of, well, perseverance and kindness in Japan.
And that underdog story starts right at the beginning, doesn't it? The
Yeah.
sources highlight the striking contrast. He was bred in Ireland, brought over to Japan,
Yeah.
for what the sources say was a, quote, shockingly low price. Only 5 million yen.
Just 5 million yen,
Oh,
which, immediately frames him as, the overlooked one, the outsider.
Especially when you look at his bloodline.
Exactly. He wasn't some nobody pedigree-wise. Sired by Big Stone, his dam was Princess Rima.
Who was a daughter of affirmed the American Triple Crown winner.
Right. So the potential was there, on paper at least. But that price tag, well, it suggested expectations were, let's say, modest.
So let's get into that humble start. Born in 96, a bay colt. But he was definitely a late bloomer.
Oh, for sure. He didn't even
Wonder.
debut till he was 3, which is, pretty late if you're aiming for the top tier.
And what did that late start really mean, practically speaking?
Well, it meant he was playing catch-up from day one. He didn't hit open class level until the autumn of that year.
Okay.
And that was after the Kikosho, the final leg of their Triple Crown, had already been run. So missing those big classic races for 3-year-olds, it puts you behind the 8 ball compared to the elite horses.
But he did find his stride eventually. He gets his first graded win in the Chukyo-Kinen, a Group 3 race.
Right, which for listeners maybe not deep into racing tiers, that puts him solidly in that good upper mid level, but not quite the absolute peak, the Group 1s.
And this rise, it happens just as another big star, Admire Vega, was retiring.
Yeah, good timing, in a way. Admire Vega's retirement left this kind of void, a narrative gap in the racing scene.
And Doto was stepping up.
He was ready to step into that spotlight, with his own growing talent.
But that spotlight already had someone standing squarely in the middle of it.
Oh, yes. If Doto was rising, he was rising straight towards an absolute phenomenon, TM Abra O, the unbeatable champion.
Which brings us to, well, the heart of his story, really. This defining and often painful rivalry. Doto basically became known as the Eternal Second.
It's almost hard to believe the consistency of it over a full calendar year.
A whole year.
Yep. Doto finished second to TM Opera O 5 times.
Yeah.
Consecutively. In Japan's biggest, most prestigious races, the Group 1s.
5 times. Wow.
Just think about that. To be that good, consistently the second best horse in the country, race after race.
Let's listen. It's brutal. Takazuka Kinen,
Tenno-sho Autumn,
Japan Cup,
Arima Kinning.
and the Tenno-sho Spring again.
Exactly. Being that good, that reliable, and always finishing just behind the same horse. You have to imagine the psychological toll on the whole team.
Oh, absolutely. Crushing.
But, that's also precisely why the Japanese public seemed to connect with him so deeply.
How so?
Well, Doto never gave up. He was always there, always trying, always reliable. TM Opera O was maybe this perfect machine.
Right.
And Doto was the perfect foil. The one who relentlessly pushed that machine, made his victories look even greater because the challenger was so good.
So he wasn't seen as failing, necessarily.
Not entirely. His struggle tapped into that Japanese cultural value of ganburu, enduring, persevering with patience, doing your best, even against the odds. Doto wasn't just losing. He was demonstrating determination again and again.
That really reframes it. He wasn't a failure. He was almost the measure of the champion's greatness.
Exactly. But the sources are clear. That nearly man label, that constant second place, it got heavy.
Yeah, I bet.
And the pressure wasn't just, abstract. It was intense, especially on his jockey, Yasuhiko Yasuda.
He felt it personally.
Deeply. Apparently, by the time they were heading into their next big showdown, the pressure was so immense. The source material suggests Yasuda actually said something like, if they lost to Opera O again, he might have to step down.
Wow. He threatened to quit.
That's how much it was weighing on them, their careers, maybe even their sanity at that point.
That just paints a picture of sheer emotional exhaustion, which, sets the stage perfectly for the payoff. The moment perseverance finally broke through, the 2001 Takazuka Kinen.
Yes. 6th attempt against the champ in a G1.
What changed? What was different this time?
Everything, really. The team finally accepted that trying to outkick TM Opera O in the final stretch just wasn't working. It was a losing strategy.
So they needed a new plan.
A radical tactical shift, yeah. Maybe born out of desperation, but it turned out to be strategically brilliant.
Okay, tell us about it. Was it just going faster, or was it more calculated?
It was about disrupting Opera O's rhythm, forcing him out of his comfort zone, instead of sitting back and waiting.
Yeah.
Yasuda sent Doto to the front much earlier than usual, took control coming around that final turn, opened up a lead, and basically dared the champion, come and get me.
A bold move, all or nothing.
Absolutely. High risk, high reward.
And it worked. Doto dug deep, found something extra.
And the champion couldn't catch him, couldn't close that gap. Doto finally got his Group 1 win over his rival.
That moment. What do the sources say about the reaction? Relief, disbelief, just pure joy.
Euphoria is probably the right word. For the fans, it felt like more than just a horse race win. It was like vindication, proof that sticking with it, enduring, it can pay off eventually.
A huge emotional release.
Totally. Yeah. But in a kind of poetic twist, that massive effort, that emotional peak, sort of signaled the beginning of the end for both of them on the track.
The victory took its toll.
Seems like it. Both Doto and Opera O started showing their age, the effects of long campaigns, not long after that race.
But their final chapter together is pretty special too, isn't it?
It really is. One of the most heartwarming moments in racing history, I think. Doto's very last race was the Arimakinnon.
And how did he do?
He finished 4th, which doesn't sound amazing until you hear.
Yeah.
He finished ahead of TM Opera.
No way. So he got the last laugh, in a sense.
Kinda, yeah. A perfect poetic conclusion to their incredible rivalry, with Doto finally finishing in front.
And then the ultimate sign of respect, their retirement ceremony.
They weren't separate events. They held them together side by side.
That's amazing.
It really acknowledged that, the greatness of one was inseparable from the challenge of the other. They were partners in making history.
Partners in history. I like that.
But even as his racing career ended, the sources show Doto's real lasting legacy was just starting. His mission changed completely.
From winning races.
To winning hearts.
Right. This is where that gentle underdog reputation really takes off.
Yeah.
After a pretty modest time at stud.
Yeah. Didn't set the world on fire as a sire.
He was taken in by the Retired Horse Association, became a foster horse. What does that actually involve?
It's a great program. He basically became an ambassador for retired racehorses. It's not just about giving them a home, but using their presence for, therapeutic or educational purposes. Doto, with his amazing temperament, was perfect for connecting with the public.
And his retirement home, Northern Lake, gave him a new buddy.
It did. Another retired star, Taiki Shuttle. And they became incredibly close.
The famous Doto and Shuttle Diary blog?
That's the one. It became super popular. Seems Doto was always destined to have this intense but ultimately loving relationship with another big name.
First his rival, then his best friend.
Exactly. But the really remarkable thing about his retirement is seeing how that quiet strength he showed on the track just translated directly into his personality off it.
The staff described him how?
Just consistently gentle, calm, incredibly tolerant. And this is where you get these wonderful anecdotes that really paint a picture of his character, way beyond performance stats.
Okay, we have to hear these. They sound amazing. Let's start with his patience with other animals. There's a story about goats and a raccoon.
Yeah, the goats were apparently nearby, and Doto just showed immense patience, let them crowd around him, never got agitated or aggressive.
Okay.
But the raccoon story is the classic. A wild raccoon apparently decided to move into Doto's stall, right into his personal space.
Seriously, most horses would freak out or get really territorial. What did Doto do?
Nothing. He just accepted it. The sources say they coexisted peacefully. Doto's tolerance was just off the charts. He treated this wild animal like a roommate.
That's not just patience, that's profound peacefulness.
That's what the staff kept saying, yeah, a daily calmness.
And then there's the barn cat story. This one feels like it perfectly mirrors his racing career, that gentle persistence.
It really does. So the barn cat was initially scared of Doto, because he's huge.
Sure.
But Doto just kept gently trying to initiate contact, being curious but never threatening, and eventually his quiet persistence won the cat over.
Won it over how?
To the point where the cat not only stopped running away, but was often seen riding around on Doto's back.
On his back? That's incredible.
That's a perfect metaphor, right?
Yeah.
The same quality that let him keep trying against Opera O, finally winning the cat's trust. gentle persistence.
And even in retirement, he knew how to play to the crowd. The camera ham anecdote.
Oh, yeah, the ultimate pro. The sources all mention this unique charm point. Whenever someone pulled out a camera,
he'd notice.
Instantly, you'd stop whatever he was doing, walk right up to the camera, and basically put his nose right on the lens. Which is why there are so many of those adorable, super close-up photos of him looking curious. He was connecting, even then.
Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more. Check out our other videos for more stories you might enjoy.